Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Guy.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm not going to say I'm excited, even though I am. Although I think, you know what? I think I just repeated exactly what I said on our last podcast, is that I'm not going to say I'm excited, even though I am. Every time. How are
That's
you doing? I
that's
should
your
ask you if
tagline.
you're excited.
That's your tagline.
It is my tagline. I'm excited.
I'm great. Here, ready to knock out another fantastic episode of Clienting with our guest today, Justie Nichols. And Justie, we would love to hear what you'd like to. We always have our guests introduce themselves and let listeners know what they need to know about you. So, welcome to Clienting.
Thanks very much. I'm glad you're both doing well. My name's Justie Nicol, and I am a solo attorney in Colorado, and I do criminal defense mostly. But I own a second company. I also have a third full-time job in that I'm a parent of a 2-year-old toddler. 3 dogs who I'm sure if the mailman pulls up right now, it's just going to be mayhem. So office dogs, hashtag office dogs. That's my hashtag.
Awesome. Well, we also love Office Dogs, and thank goodness for editing if any of that happens.
Yeah, and I apologize for pluralizing your name. In my notes here, it's got an S on it.
It's
Yes, my
autocorrect.
fault.
I get Justice a lot. And that was
Which is great branding.
It is. That is my email. So it was a motion in limb when I was a DA. A public defender actually made a motion in limb to keep me from saying the joke Justie for Justice, because I get called Justice all the time. And I was like, what? Why is this a motion in front of the court? Like, this is ridiculous. I got back to my desk and all of my interns had plastered my whole desk with the phrase Justie for Justice. And it stuck. 10 years later, here I am.
That's awesome. Did you know that you were going to be a professional justice seeker as a young person?
I think I wanted to be a lawyer at about 5th grade.
Okay.
So my parents might have told you before that, but it was completely luck of the draw.
Nice.
If luck is deciding your career path in 5th grade, how old is someone then? Like 10, 11 years old? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I recently went back to the courtroom in 5th grade where I put the cigarette on trial, and I was the defense attorney. It was the first time it was not a conviction on every single count. And I walked back in as a real attorney, literally on Valentine's Day earlier this year. And I was like, wow, it's been decades and this courtroom has not changed.
Oh my gosh, that is probably one of the cutest things I've ever heard. I don't think we did that in elementary school. Did you, Guy, the mock trial thing? I wanted to desperately because I, for a while, wanted to be a lawyer and wanted to try out my skills.
I wanted to be a judge. That was my thing.
I'm not surprised by that. Not at all surprised.
I was going to make a joke that the decor of justice moves slowly since the courtroom didn't change.
Wood paneling.
Wood paneling. It's a classic.
Yeah.
They bought in bulk.
Oh, yeah.
Why ruin a good thing, right? You know, you got your wood paneling. It looks like a courtroom. Why would you change it?
I mean, they didn't even upgrade the seating. The poor jurors still have these like swivel chairs that are attached to the ground and like made out of wine barrel looking things. I mean, it's got to be so uncomfortable.
Seems like
to our topic today in some ways is that the court doesn't seem very interested in the experience of the people that are attending.
Right. Especially criminal defendants.
From a justice standpoint, they are, but not from a comfort standpoint.
No.
Yes. So that brings us to what we're talking about today. Tech tools that make for a seamless client experience. I'm super excited. Justie, I know you have talked about this and you've done a CLE on all of your tech tools. And so now the wider audience of Beyond Colorado CLE, I'm sure it was Colorado. Maybe
it was
not.
actually pro law. So I think it was a couple of different
Nice. All right. So widen it out to all of the states to give your talk on that. And you have some amazing tech tools that I can't wait to dive into. The first of which is something that when we talked about it, it was new to me, even though I saw it in your email. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And that's WiseStamp. So your email signature, can you talk about how that works? And then we'll of course link to it so people can see what it looks like.
Sure. Yeah. So I don't have like a separate server or anything. There's no like @Nicol Law for my email. I just use Gmail because my clients are students. My clients are, relatively young, tech savvy folks for the most part. I think I have one elderly client that doesn't do email, but that's it. Everybody else is completely familiar with Gmail. And so almost all my tech tools will integrate with the G Suite systems. And WiseStamp was something I discovered very early on. When I was looking for like a attorney disclaimer at the bottom of my emails, like this is not intended for you, delete it type thing. But WiseStamp actually lets me put in a picture. And one of the reasons that I use that is because so often criminal defense clients, they'll call me like the date. I had one call me the day before court and be able to hire me and sign electronically on an engagement letter. And I went to court the next day. So the first time they see me is in the courthouse with 1,000 other people. Well, how are they going to recognize me? I'm not going to be able to recognize them because Lord knows mugshots are not indicative of what people actually look like. But also like people should feel comfortable walking up to their own attorney in court. So my photo is there so that people can actually recognize me and approach me in court because sometimes that's the first time they meet me. So what else it does is it lets me tweet, or it lets me link to my last tweet. It lets me link to my last blog post. It has all of my mailing and physical address on there. And for branding purposes, I can actually use the same template for my contract paralegal or for any other staff. And it's relatively cheap. Like it was, I think, less than $50 to add a second person for a whole year. And so it's something that gets a lot of comments by clients and generally works well for me.
That's so awesome. And there's so much that I think people just take for granted. But for listeners, if you think about that, I guess watchers, since we're doing video too, think about the speed with which that engagement happens, right? So Justie's able to go literally within overnight, go get in front of a potential client, get retained by a potential client, and has built-in mechanisms that help get an introduction so that you're not scouring. Those little nuanced things that lawyers tend not to think about, right? Like lawyers, they're diving into the law aspect of the experience, but they tend to overlook this stuff that makes such a big difference. And, you're already getting the feedback too from clients. They're like, I love this. It's amazing that we're able to do this quickly. I'm not searching around for you because, they're, especially in a criminal defense context, they're probably really scared. And how much more scared are you making it when they can't even recognize their lawyer?
Right. And worse yet, when they don't get a chance to talk to their lawyer before they're actually in court. Like that's the way the public defender system works is you're in court. That's the first time I'm talking to you as a public defender client. And I'm like, public defenders are good attorneys. They're overworked. They're underpaid. They don't get enough credit. But
Preach.
By getting a private attorney involved, you should have better service than somebody who has 300 cases. You're one of 20 for me, less sometimes because my caseload, I have a 2-year-old, see above mentioned comment about 2-year-old, and I scale my practice down when we're potty training. Oh my God.
I'm right there with you. I totally understand. I have a 2-year-old as well. Well, that's awesome. So I love that. WiseStamp. We'll make sure to put that in the in the notes.
Yeah, and also, side note, I have not proposed it yet for us to bring into Attorneys Think, but that is on my list because we have in our email signature, of course, a photo and our logo, but most people, or I shouldn't say, most people on our team don't need appointment scheduler. But there are all these other little things, and maybe if they do want to be more connected, they can put their Twitter in there. Anyway, I think it's really awesome and great, and a little bit more, it's just way more interactive than your typical email signature. So that's the first thing.
What I love about it too, what you did just mention, Kelly, and I hadn't mentioned yet, was you can click in my signature to schedule a call with me because I hate answering the phone. I don't do it. I'm horrible about it. I don't think attorneys should answer their own phone because we give legal advice. Like we just can't stop. and we don't do ourselves justice in terms of like ethical duties not to give legal advice until you've ran a conflict check. And it's impossible to block time for phone calls when people are just cold calling you all the time. So I use Smith AI to do my remote receptionist services. Kelly, you and I were introduced by Maddie over there at Smith, and I love her. She and I did that CLE together. And then I use Acuity for my scheduling, and YStamp links Acuity. So if I'm emailing with a potential client, right, I'm sitting in court, I can't actually answer the phone call. Smith texts me and tells me they've called. I can then email them and say, go ahead and just click on the link in my signature and schedule a call for me. And it automatically updates with my calendar. It's amazing.
It's awesome.
And I've embedded Acuity and my Typeform in my website as well, as that's the two-step process you have to do to hire me as your attorney. You have to fill out the Typeform, which is 10 questions like, who are you? Where do you live? Who else is involved? When is your next court date? Important information.
Yeah.
And then the second step is schedule a call. And I do free 30-minute consultations all through Google Voice, quite frankly, because it links to my phone and I can take it from anywhere.
So question for you, is your office phone number published online or no?
Yeah, the office phone number is.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how is the phone answered if somebody calls that number?
It's Smith AI, the remote receptionist services. I forward my Google Voice number to them and it integrates seamlessly. They text me client updates if I can't take a call. And they'll try to put through specific types of callers. I have rules set up on my account, like judges, opposing counsel, co-counsel, current clients, always try to put them through. But I don't always have the ability to answer.
Sure.
And I can have them do outbound calls from the same phone number as well.
And so again, from the context of client experience, you've got somebody answering your phone. It's not a press 1 to leave a message, right? Like, the only thing worse than answering your phone is trying to expect somebody to leave a voicemail for you. So I love that. And then I think rules-based prioritization, like, let's face the facts here, is that this is something that comes up with lawyers a lot with us, is that they say, look, I'm a solo. I can't hire a bunch of staff. And so you've got tools in place that help you continue to provide great experience in terms of having people actually to talk to. And then also systems in place that help you streamline and prioritize calls based on need, which again is designed for the people that need to get a hold of you the fastest have that means. Yeah.
And it's nice too, like Smith does everything for me on the phone. They will do court reminders for clients. So I look through my calendar on Tuesday mornings, mostly because I don't work on Mondays. I have my 2-year-old home with me. So I'm on my mobile on Monday, maybe. Otherwise, maybe it's during nap time. But Tuesday morning, I hit the ground running and I send Smith an email and I say, these are the folks who have court this week. Please call them to remind them of their court date and that I will meet them outside their courtroom.
I never thought about using your receptionist service as the outreach as well. And that's a really cool thing that you're doing in addition. And so there's that. And also I want to know about if they're doing any intake sorts of things for you.
Yeah. So I'll get like weekend and after hours callers that leave voicemails, which is great. Somebody actually does leave a voicemail occasionally. Not very often, but occasionally. So Tuesday morning, I have Smith go out and return those phone calls. And if they are good leads, I'll say, can you guys please do the intake form? They have access to my Typeform, those same 10 questions. And once they've done the intake form, can you schedule them with my Acuity system to do a phone call or consultation with me? And it's all anybody who meets the criteria of criminal defense clients. If they call in and they meet that criteria, Smith will do it up front without any impact or any input from me. So it's fantastic. And what's great too, maybe getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but the next system that I use to seamlessly move people kind of through a sales pipeline is Copper CRM. And whenever Smith takes a phone call, it automatically populates that there's been a new client into the system and it fills in their information. Anytime somebody fills out the Typeform, it fills out another column, Typeform received, which is those 10 quick intake questions. And then anytime somebody schedules a phone call with me, it fills out, there's a new client consultation scheduled with you. And sometimes people skip steps 1 and 2 and go straight to 3, and I have to back them up and say, no, you've got to do the intake form before I can talk with you. To date, though, I love being able to have something visual to move them through, kind of like, all right, there's the initial phone call, here's the intake form, here's the next step. The next step after that is the phone call has been scheduled or conducted. We've sent the engagement letter. We've sent the Square invoice, which I use electronic payments online. We've received payments. We've won the file. And then we do have some that obviously we don't win every single case, but we have like post-loss follow-up column for figuring out, okay, what can we do better next time? Which I don't think a lot of attorneys do. I certainly don't think attorneys do that with potential clients that they've lost. It's one thing, current clients that they've closed their case, how do we do for you? It's another thing to talk to potential clients like, why'd you not go with us?
Because how else are we supposed to get better if we're not getting that feedback?
Right.
Yeah. And what kinds of, I'm just curious to know, what kinds of feedback are you getting from people? You don't have to, obviously don't just,
why they don't hire me?
Yeah, but I'm curious. I'm curious to just because I want our listeners to know that this doesn't have to be scary, that there can just be, hey, you know what? I talked to this other lawyer and they got, faster, or they're whatever it is. I want to take away that, that anxiety of asking why someone didn't choose you right away from the beginning.
Some of it is my area of law. Like, if you are calling to consult with me on a serious sex offense felony, I'm going to quote you potentially tens of thousands of dollars to do this case. And granted, I do everything at flat fee basis, but for people who are, potentially on the income border of qualifying for public defender services, I'd say probably half of those cases that I don't win, they went with the public defender. And I can't fault them for that. Like, that's good service and it's free, and I wish you the best. Another segment of it is kind of the other end of the spectrum. They're calling me about a traffic case, or they're calling me about something that I don't think they need an attorney. So I may do the consult with them just as a courtesy and kind of talk them through, all right, this is kind of what you can expect. If they don't give you this sort of offer and they want you to do something else, like, call me back. But go to this first court date. You don't need an attorney. And a lot of times they'll say we resolve the case at that first court date. And I always follow up with them after their court dates so that I know, all right, you're still on my radar. How are things going? Did it get resolved? Did it not get resolved? It's very rare that I will actually have a client tell me I went with another competitor in the private defense area. Mostly that's because I'm low cost. I have low overhead. I do everything digital. I'm almost completely virtual. My client fees are some of the lowest in the state, and I offer a payment plan as well.
Which again, and that's another thing that lawyers don't think about, but there's a built-in competitive advantage and improved client experience, because it's a big part of client experience, cost.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. I love finding ways for lawyers to provide great, even better service than what they'd be paying in a lot of these different roles, full-time salaries that the software is handling. And the other side of that coin is, of course, there's the debate about less jobs out there, but we'll save that for another day. But from a client experience standpoint, folks that are watching this, think about that. Justie is providing, she has a competitive advantage from being able to use some of this automation. It's getting better service in many respects because it's systematized, it's fast, it doesn't require her clients to come in to sign things. So there's it's just so many great aspects to how this is a benefit to the client.
Well, and on the note of you're still consulting with people who you probably won't be able to help them, but you just kind of want to walk them through the process. There is Guy and I have kind of each given this presentation in a variety of ways, but it's all about client experience. And there are a few standing slides that we use in it of reviews that people have given for lawyers that they did not retain their services, but they just helped them. They either referred them to a lawyer who could help them, or just were like, hey, they gave me information that I needed and I was able to do this. And what I want to tell everyone, like, what speaks better to who you are as a lawyer and the kind of service you can provide to clients than the kind of service you provide to people who aren't even your clients?
Yeah. I mean, one of the ones that I have folks that I refer people to. As I've narrowed my practice over the years, I have kind of like automated some templates. Like, I don't think you're going to be a good fit for me due to caseload, or I'm not taking that kind of case anymore, but here's a referral for you. So if I can't provide you a referral after 12 years in practice, there's something wrong with that situation. Like, I'm not doing my job and networking with other attorneys. Like, the legal community is not that big or not that amorphous that I can't give you a name to have somebody potentially help you with your case. There are situations where I tell people, I don't even think you have a case, especially in like a civil litigation concept, but you should consult with a civil litigation attorney anyway. My favorite one, though, is giving people the resources to help themselves. So state judicial in Colorado has a number of self-help forms about like sealing your case and suing somebody for like getting your property back. It's called Replevin or Replevin. I am one of the few attorneys that does animal law in Colorado, but I don't take animal clients. Like, I teach, being a former prosecutor, I teach on how to prosecute animal cruelty. And this came up on Twitter with Usky. I'm actually doing a conference for the Colorado Animal Welfare Conference later this year. I'm teaching at their seminar, and I teach for the Bureau of Animal Protection on a biannual basis twice a year as well. So I get like tons of private people who are like, I want help with my animals. And I'm like, you don't need an attorney to do this. If you want to sue your ex-girlfriend to get your dog back because she stole the dog, here are the forms to do it. Like, you can file all of this and bring ownership like proof to court and really represent yourself. But if you can't, here's another animal law attorney that I do recommend. And just being able to link them to the forms. Like, it's not that hard to fill out a form, and attorneys shouldn't have the corner on the market on drafting legal pleadings, because
right. And if only the court would get familiar with DocuSign, they could sign it and just submit it.
Right.
For another day.
Yeah. If only courts would always allow you to file everything electronic.
Right?
Yeah.
Took Illinois like, I don't even know. We'll leave it. We won't say anything bad.
Before we get to document signing, we've already kind of touched on that a little bit. I want to go back to Smith AI, and another thing with them is I believe you also use them for the chatbot on your website, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
How is that working? Because Guy and I have talked about chatbots quite a bit. We've also talked to lawyers and law firms who love them. And then actually one of our clients said, hey, I'd be curious to know what other lawyers think about chatbots specifically in a variety of practice areas, because he said for him and his clients, he found that people just weren't interacting with it. And it sort of just became something on his site that was noise, and so he took it away. But I also know other people, like Patrick Pallas talks about how much their chatbot is working for them. So curious to get another opinion.
I'm kind of still on the fence. So I was one of the beta testers for Smith AI's chat box, so I've probably had it longer than most. When I first rolled it out, I had quite a few people being involved in it. The hard part for me is my website is so simple. Like, the right-hand column is hiring an attorney. Step 1, fill this out. Step 2, schedule a call. People aren't necessarily engaging with the chatbot that much. Smith does have live chat receptionists as well. So during business hours, you actually have a person on Smith's chat, which is maybe a little bit different than some other places. Yeah. And so only after hours and on weekends is it the automated service. I've had, I think, 2 clients come specifically from chat. And what's nice is I get the chat script, like the transcript, in my email inbox from Smith. So it was a late at night kind of thing. College student in California was like, oh, I got to go back for court in Colorado for a traffic ticket. And he chatted with the chat bot and got more information. And I reached out to him like, don't come back. It's a traffic case. I can handle this for you without you having to appear.
Great client experience.
Yeah, saved him hundreds of dollars on a plane ticket he didn't need to do. I took his money though, so there was that. But I think I was still cheaper than the plane ride, honestly. So he interacted with that, and then I had another one who's I think the client's mother actually was on the chatbot. But those 2 are the only 2 that I've signed specifically from the chat. But I do like getting the transcripts. And sometimes it's just like, hey, what's a good phone number? And it's like, it's right above there. But it's that handling those kinds of questions, people may miss something. And that's where the chat experience is helpful, in my opinion. And it's such low cost.
Right.
Like, it really is. When you already have a package for receptionist service, like,
yeah. And it's there in case people need it. Like, just like you said, if they miss the phone number up above, right, it's there, and they may not have asked, and then they would have just maybe moved on to the next lawyer's website and not had that experience. So
right, it's give them the choice, right? Give them the option of whether they prefer phone calls or if they want to interact with a chatbot. I think that's another thing from the client experience standpoint we try to talk about so much is, lawyers tend to think that they want to control the means of communication and all this stuff. And it's like, that's just thinking about the way that you want to communicate, but not thinking about how potential clients would prefer to communicate.
And it's interesting you say that. I actually have a communications policy, which is like 2 pages in my engagement letter to set client expectations upfront about what's to be expected once you hire me. It even goes so far as to tell them, like, if I'm talking with the DA down the hall from you about your case or about whatever, and you see me laughing, like, I have a relationship with that person. Don't necessarily assume that I'm laughing about your case or that, this somehow relates to you negatively. Like, I have clients who really want like an aggressive attorney, and I'm like, that isn't me. Like, that's just not going to be me. I'm going to try to negotiate. And for the most part, it works for me. Now, trial, different story. But outlining client expectations about communication, like, don't call me on the weekends. Call your bondsman. I'm not going to come and get you out of jail.
Right. This is so huge, though. And this is another area that we could talk, maybe we'll do another episode on this. But the expectation setting is so overlooked by lawyers. And that's what kind of dovetails in my next question for you. So I know a lot of lawyers are going to listen to this and they're going to hear things like Wise Stamp and Copper CRM and Typeform and Zapier and Square and DocuSign. And they're going to be like, what is going on here? So talk a little bit about how your progression from, as you were, and maybe you're just like, I was always on top of this kind of software stuff, but how did you start to implement these things, get familiar? Did you do all of this? Did you set all this up yourself? Did you have help? Because again, back to Kelly's point, I think people get overwhelmed and scared. So maybe you could talk about how you were able to actually accomplish all of this.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It wasn't overnight. I think what I started with out of all of them was probably Typeform, because I had a hard copy questionnaire that I would email people and they'd never respond with it. And I'm like, I need a way to have them do conflict checks. So Typeform was first. I still use the free version of Typeform. And then I think the next thing was social media and doing some online marketing. I built my first website myself using Comcast's back-end self-editor thing, which horrible. And I finally decided I was going to get a tech company to rebuild the website. I found a local company down the street that I know face-to-face, and they do a good job. And then I use Buffer a lot for social media just because I was like, I can't post to everything. So once I kind of started with like one or two of these tech kind of implementations, I was like, this made my life so much easier. How come I can't do this in other areas? I should be able to do this in other areas. And DocuSign's been around a long time. So I went out and did DocuSign, and then Smith came next because I hate answering my own phone. Like I said, like phone is the bane of my existence. So, and I was losing clients because people were not leaving voicemails.
Right.
So I think those I started just like over a period of about a year, I got those, and then it really snowballed. Like, okay, I need to look at my systems, see where I can automate, see where I can make things work for me. And I connected with Maddie at Smith AI, and she suggested getting a CRM. I started trial and error on CRMs, tried HubSpot, tried Salesforce. I'm like, I'm not a marketing professional. There's one of me. Like, I don't need all this integration. It's expensive. And I settled on Copper because it's the one that's built for the Google Suite system. And it was relatively low cost. I could bring on my contract paralegal as a second user, and she can help move cases through the sales pipeline. But we track our tasks in there on current clients as well by due date. So I can prioritize for her without ever having to pick up the phone and talk to her or email her a task. It's in Copper by due date. It's amazing. But I started getting a little cumbersome with all the different tech things, and that's where Zapier comes in to really make them talk to each other. Zapier is not easy to use, but I find that their customer support is great. So I had a lot of problems initially with getting Smith AI and Copper to talk to each other, so much so that I had Smith AI and Copper's tech support on the same email chain, and we got it. They worked it out on their end and just told me the steps to get everything to work, and it's been amazing.
But you're not a computer engineer. You're not a computer science person. No. You're not, a systems engineer. You figured this out for yourself.
Yeah, and I didn't want to buy an expensive law practice management software. I don't use Clio. I conflict check in Excel. I don't have a big office. I know my clients by name. So all of these were low cost or free subscriptions, and there's things that I've just discovered over time. Like right now, I'm not a huge fan of DocuSign. So I spent like 2 hours last night while I was watching a movie on my phone, exploring Proposify and PandaDoc.
Yeah, we use PandaDoc. I'm
leaning towards them, but they don't integrate with Square yet.
Right.
And so I want to be able to give one proposal, and then within that proposal, accept the signature for the engagement letter and a button to click here to pay your invoice.
Right.
One email done instead of two, which is simplifying the client process even more.
Does HelloSign do they? No. Okay.
No, I checked that too. I started before DocuSign with HelloSign on a trial, and I didn't like them. But they do Stripe. A lot of people do Stripe. Maybe I should switch to Stripe, but it's harder to switch your credit card processing company when you have Coltaf accounts and everything you're working on. So
it is. I was curious too, maybe, and if you don't have thoughts on it, this is kind of off topic, but one of the things that we hear a lot about, there's a reluctance to use some of these systems, especially the payment processing, because of issues with ethics and IOLTA accounts and stuff like that. How do you navigate some of those waters?
So I do have a credit card policy as well in my engagement letter that basically says you have an obligation to talk to me about any charges that you feel were inappropriate before you try to go back to the credit card company and challenge that and put a stop payment on it, because that affects your Coltaf balance and everything. I do all my own books. That's probably the next thing that I'm going to outsource, but my undergrad is in accounting and poli-sci. So I brute force QuickBooks into doing what I want because it's not built for lawyers. I'll tell you that. There's a QuickBooks for Lawyers for Dummies kind of book, and that was the only way that I could make it do what I wanted. So in terms of the ethics on this payment processing, in Colorado, you can't charge your clients the credit card processing fees. So every time I get a deposit, I go in and manually reimburse the Coltaf account for the credit card fees from my operating account. And I do that all with electronic banking. I was just looking last night, kind of went down the tech rabbit hole a little bit with the PandaDocs thing, but there is an integration between Square and QuickBooks that will download automatic your deposits and everything. So I'll probably be expanding into that, but I don't think there's a way to do fees from a separate account. It's just withheld from the deposit. And I manually have to do that because of ethics opinions in Colorado until they allow us to charge credit card fees back to clients. Like there's no way around that, I don't think.
And then for some of these other systems too, just again, because we get a lot of the tech skeptics who say things like, I don't want potential clients coming and entering stuff into a chatbot because the courts are going to subpoena that information. I mean, and again, without getting into all the details of it, what's your general kind of sense of? I mean, obviously you're using these things, so you think that's muster.
So you've got client confidentiality concerns for sure. The problem that I have is more on that side with all of these things than it is with like court subpoenaing. I mean, I do criminal defense.
Right.
My clients' freaking social security numbers are probably out there on the internet for people to use. Like they're not taking their own security seriously.
They already confessed on Facebook.
Right. Yeah. They've already put it on Avvo for the entire legal community to weigh in. And I'm like, stop posting online.
Right.
No. So I think the biggest concern that we have from an ethics perspective is security of all the systems that we use. I disclose in my engagement letter, again, all these third-party software systems that I use. I link directly to their security policies. What I find crazy is that the bar associations, the ethics committees out there aren't getting on board with this because, quite frankly, Dropbox, Square, their whole reputation is built on document storage and security.
Preach.
And like attorneys who use a paper file, I'm sorry, like this is not secure.
Thank you. Especially if you leave it in your car or leave it out in the restaurant where you're doing work.
Right. It's not, I mean, even just a fire in your office.
Right.
Yeah.
Like first thing I bring is my laptop and I'm fine. Burn everything to the ground. I don't care.
Right.
It seems like this silly thing where we kind of talked about this on our episode with Yev about blockchain. It's like people can't really understand what the cloud is. And so then there's the fear, just the fear of the unknown of like, well, I don't know where the information lives, so how can I say that it's protected? Right. And it's just ridiculous.
It's big paper lobbying the ethics commissions.
Right. Really Dunder Mifflin's just in there like
big paper.
Yeah.
Well, and I think in terms of my cases, 90% of it is public record anyway.
Right.
It's like you can go and pull the Colorado Open Records Act applies to criminal proceedings unless it's a juvenile case. Everything is open record. The complaint, the information on a felony case, like you'll have access to the affidavit in the court file. Any reporter can go and pull it.
Well,
What's my file going to have that's different?
You make a very good point too, is that, even comparing, these businesses, their whole business is security versus even like the court system security. I mean, if you want to compare security between the average court and Dropbox, like it's not even close, right?
No.
I mean, I've seen court websites that aren't even using like HTTPS protocols. So it's, and this is,
they don't have a security certificate.
Right. And so it's like, let's be real here. So that's good. I'm glad that'll help alleviate some of the concerns that I think a lot of lawyers, because, lawyers, they hear this stuff from their state bars and say, beware, be scared. And again, you're implementing a lot of this stuff, and I think that obviously we might be in the echo chamber because we're telling each other what we agree with. But I think it's good for other people to hear that, not from us, but from a lawyer like yourself who's implementing these systems and having success and navigating it. And I think another good thing that I'll just remind people that are watching this is that you have this built into engagement agreements, policy. You have policies on communication. It's another aspect to all this technology stuff where expectation setting and transparency with clients helps alleviate some of these issues.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that we brought this up because I got an email from Maddie at Smith AI probably 2 weeks ago. I think it was the State Bar of Wisconsin was issuing ethics opinions that said attorneys should not use remote receptionist service because of the confidentiality issues. And I'm like, what? There's thousands and thousands of the receptionists that are answering these phones, and you're telling me that that's less secure than the old method of doing things, which is a receptionist in this family law practice might quit and go to this other family law practice down the street and have all of this client information in their head and potentially be able to act on it. Like, that's not a secure model. Like, what is the concern with remote receptionists that are spread out over the entire US? That's ridiculous.
You can have the same non-disclosure agreement and contract that you have with your online receptionist service that you can have with your receptionist who is in-house. And I'm not surprised Wisconsin made that rule.
They switched it.
Oh, Wisconsin.
Maddie and I did some research and we submitted a opinion about like, this is what we can do. And they came back and they reversed their position on it. They're going to draft some specific language to guide lawyers in it. But they changed their tune after hearing from Maddie and me, which was kind of fun.
Done.
That's amazing. Oh.
Yeah, I'm like, I need the language now. Please share.
Yes. How about we round things out with talking about your marketing efforts? Because I know you use Trello, and you can talk about what you use that for, but then I know you also, just like with everything else, kind of pulling from other minds or other sources, you outsource a bit of marketing as well.
Yes. So like I said, I used a tech company to build my new website, and they do SEO for me as well as site retargeting. So if you guys have been on my website, my face will follow you around the internet for the next couple of weeks until you hire me as an attorney.
Top of mind awareness.
Yeah, yes. Top of mind awareness. So site retargeting has been very productive for me. I do a little bit of pay-per-click with them, and I can turn it on and off as I need. But that is about the extent of my paid for marketing efforts. The rest of it is referrals. I don't get a whole lot of referrals, but I'm in a number of different networking groups where I feel like, frankly, one is the women-owned law firm group. It's called the Wolf Pack in Colorado, and Yev is a member as well. So I know Yev.
Awesome.
I'm actually sending another attorney to her for some business law stuff. I love being able to refer things to that group. They have an active Facebook group, and we're kind of all over the board in practice areas, but it's all women owned, and women have a different way of practicing law too. I think you'll find a lot more women are receptive to the whole idea of the client experience than some of your old white-haired men who are typical law firm partners. So I like fostering those kinds of relationships. But the other marketing that I do outsource is content marketing on my blog. I'm very active in it. We schedule posts and draft a month at a time. But my content marketing gal is another attorney from law school that I knew 15 years ago. She just didn't want to practice law. She loves writing. And so she knows the rules of ethics about lawyer advertising. You can't say you're an expert. You can't say you're a specialist. You can't say you're the lowest cost. You can't say all the things you can't say. My tech company didn't get that. And so many of the marketing companies that are out there for other industries don't get that. It worried me to see some of the pay-per-click ads that my tech company was ready to run, because they say expert or specializing. And I'm like, you can't do that. So I have a very active role in approving what goes up online. And I think that's the only way to do it when your name is the one associated with it. And I don't want to mislead a client or a potential client either. So I'm fine with that. But my content marketing gal, she writes long form content for me on the blog. We do a series of colleague posts, like colleague facing posts about practice management. These are the systems I use, how you can do a virtual law office. And then we do client facing posts as well. We're going to roll out a newsletter in the next couple of months. And I'm probably going to be looking for a tech company to do all of that here soon. I'm talking with one of your guys' representatives this afternoon about taking that over, because my content marketing gal has a full-time job at the University of Denver, and so she's like, I need to focus on that, and she's in legal tech startup.
I mean, I think there is something to be said about that. Not that other companies can't learn it, and there is. I'm glad that you are an advocate for yourself and say, you know what, I'm just going to take a look at what the copy and the ads are and make sure that I know what is going out in the world as representative of me. And that, regardless of whether your agency works with lawyers or non-lawyers, knowing what it is that's going out about you is the way to be, at least at first, until you have an established trusting relationship.
You have to own the approval process. That's the key. If you're the gatekeeper on approval, you're good to go.
Yeah. And I will say I like being involved on the front end a lot more, because it makes the back end easier. When there is a complaint or something like that, I'll know exactly what's going on. Not that I've had any complaints, thank God. But also I like to know that this is out there as an option. It drives clients into the door. It does. I wrote a blog post on sealing, and I think I got 3 or 4 sealing phone calls that same week. Ended up signing 2 of them. And what's hard for me, I will say this about outsourcing this, is I'm not a marketer. I'm not a tech person. I take advantage of customer support for all these tech platforms that I use. I need to take advantage more of the marketing know-how in terms of breaking down the analytics on what's working and what's not working. I tend to do one thing at a time to see if there's an ROI, return on investment, accounting terms. Most attorneys know that, but we'll break that down.
Yeah.
I like to implement one thing at a time and see if it works. If it does, then I might keep it. If it doesn't work, I'll probably scrap it, or I might try a different kind of method. But I cannot for the life of me understand analytics on Google AdWords or the number of clicks versus conversion versus bounce rate. Like, I need somebody to explain that Greek to me, because I might be sharp, but I'm not that good.
But you do know, open files, fees, I'm guessing you got some systems built in for like general attribution, so you can see where people are finding you. And so, that's a light year ahead of what a lot of firms are doing. And again, it's, the message that I want to come away with is that you've got that accountability and ROI measuring and a basic level built in. You don't need to be a Google Ads expert to be able to understand that general part. And again, you've built a lot of this yourself, which is fantastic. And the message here from my standpoint is that it's not as scary as people make it out. It takes some time, but you can do a lot of this stuff, getting these systems in place without having to know how to code.
Yeah, I don't know how to code. I mean, I built a website without knowing how to code. I will say I'm a millennial, sort of. So I kind of did grow up with the tech stuff more than probably your older attorneys. But if you're an older attorney and you're scared about doing this, hire an associate to do this for you, or hire an intern from law school. Like, this is second nature to them. And frankly, law schools should be teaching this more.
Yes.
Yeah, innovation and practice management. I do the solo small firm stuff at CU and DU around here. And it's amazing to me. I always ask, how many of you have any sort of business degree or have taken business classes or ever sat through a marketing course? One person has raised their hand this year. And I'm like, honey, you are light years above everybody else. You will do so much better. If there's nothing else and you can't hire somebody else to help you implement these systems, audit an online marketing course. Do some general business and info systems classes, like at your local community college, university. It may not be continuing education in terms of CLE credit, but it will pay dividends to have that background. And that's where I come from, like the business degree and the accounting degree. It was so easy for me to start my own firm because I could draw on all of that. Folks that come straight out of law school, never having learned any business stuff and never having practiced, like law schools are doing them a disservice and not teaching this on their curriculum.
Yeah. Oh, this is so important. Even if people have a CRM that they're using already, even if you have, you're using a social media platform, any of that stuff, I know there is something that everyone will take away from this. And I definitely am going wise stamp for us. Amongst a lot of other things, but I just loved that. And I thought it was so great. Guy, anything that you are hoping people will pick up?
No, just thank you again, Justie, so much for taking the time to share all this great stuff. And for folks that are listening, how do you prefer, not phone calls, but how do you prefer people reach out to you or connect with you online if they've got questions or want to get to know you?
Easiest way is to email me. Email's still king when it comes to attorneys. It's still more secure than a fax machine, which I don't even have. The email for me is justieforjustice@gmail.com. So it's JUSTIEFORJUSTICE@gmail. You can follow me on social media and everything. #OfficeDogs at Justie, the number 4 Justice.
Great. Fabulous. Thank you so much to all of our listeners and to Justie for joining us. If you have questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me and talk about either being a guest or talk about some things you heard today. And always, please leave us a review or rating on Apple Podcasts or any of your other favorite podcast platforms.